Varvatos was the greatest demon lord who had insane powers that made other demons piss their pants. People sucked over his strength, but little did they know the dumbass hated all the attention because he was a loser who wanted to taste defeat again. Unfortunately for the pathetic loser, that moment never came. Varvatos eventually got bored with his lame life, so after seeing his hot best friend Lydia's dead body, he killed himself. Cut to the distant future in some countryside, where Varvatos gets reborn as this dumb kid named Ard Meteor with a new family of irrelevant NPCs. They're having a lame-ass party for the loser's 10th birthday. This is when he realizes the only thing he desires in life is to make friends since he has none. Ard creeps on some kids playing outside through the window, just desperately hoping the cool kids will feel sorry for him and invite his lonely ass to play. But the kids took one look at Ard's ugly face and ran calling him a loser. Not taking the hint, Ard wanders into town later to scout potential new friends. But when he locks eyes on a group of girls, his nerves get the better of him. The girls immediately notice Ard's awkwardness and run for their lives. Ard tries screaming some shit about being a man of culture, but they just label the creep as a disgusting, worthless, ugly parasite and kept running. Back at his house, Ard encounters their family friend Isekai'd and whines about his inability to make a single damn friend. The clueless mayor feeds Ard some brain-dead advice to try being kind and respectful next time he awkwardly approaches people and see how well that works out for making besties. Ard thanked the dumbass and eagerly rushed back to town to put the advice into practice. But no matter what he do, he still gave off an awkward, creepy vibe that had people rejecting his pathetic ass. Feeling frustrated, Ard decided to take out his anger on some weak monsters in the forest. That's when the loser heard a young girl's screams nearby, and he flew toward to investigate. He came across a girl named Irina using magic to fight off a wolf. She turns around and freaks out to find this creepy stranger kid watching her. But Ard only has eyes for her massive cannons. As Irina shrinks back in fear, Ard tries reassuring her not to be scared before shooting his shot, asking if they can be besties. She refuses, calling him a creep before running out of there. Later, Ard returns home where Isekai'd is visiting. That's when the dumbass realizes Irina is the mayor's daughter. Since Isekai'd is his family's friend, the pervert takes this as a sign of destiny. From that point on, Ard begins relentlessly chasing after poor Irina every single day, desperately trying to force friendship upon her. He keeps stalking the terrified girl, bombarding her with unwanted gifts despite her thinking he is a loser. Sometime later, Ard holes up in his room, masterminding another idiotic strategy to make Irina his bestie. But in the middle of his pathetic scheming, the village comes under sudden attack by goblins. When Ard finally dragged his pathetic ass outside, he realized the whole town was in a panic over the goblin attack. That's when he stumbled across his father fighting the monsters. Pops tells him to quit being a useless sack of shit and save himself, but then their idiot friend Isekai'd shows up freaking out that his precious daughter is alone and stranded up on the mountain. Hearing this, the horny bastard Ard decides to be a white knight and fly to her rescue. Both Isekai'd and Ard's dad are stunned to see the creepy kid can actually use lost flying magic. Meanwhile, the spoiled brat Irina finds her ass surrounded by goblins. The drama queen decided not to fight, instead surrendering and straight up asking the goblin leader to end her pathetic life, since she'd always felt so alone in this world. But before the goblins can grant her wish, Ard swoops in and protects her with some spell. He then cleans up the trash, leaving only the goblin boss who pussies out and tries fleeing. But Ard effortlessly vaporizes him too with a spell. Ard finally turns to Irina, who's understandably confused as to why this ugly, disgusting, worthless kid just saved her life when she asked to die. See, Irina's been chronically feeling alone and isolated, which Ard, ever the professional life loser, says he can definitely relate to. That kind of loneliness and constant betrayal is precisely why he's so thirsty and determined to force this friendship on her. Irina calls bullshit, figuring Ard will only inevitably betray and abandon her just like all her other lame friends did before. But he tries insisting that back when he was buddies with his obvious crush, Hot Lydia, he was the one who ruined that relationship by being untrustworthy. So swearing on the name of the Dark Lord himself, Ard desperately promises an eternal, inviolable bond of pure friendship with Irina. She's still not convinced, but the girl's gotten so lonely and pathetic herself that she finally accepts Ard's creepy contract, shaking his clenched, sweaty hand. Cut to years later, we see Ard has grown into an even bigger creep, passed out drooling in his room. That's when Irina busts in, all excited about the idea of them enrolling together at the local prestigious magic academy. So they head to meet the headmaster, who geeks out over the chance to teach the offspring of legendary heroes. But Ard lets out an emo sigh, admitting he just wants to be a normal bully loser. The principal then reveals how impressed he is by their past accomplishment of single-handedly demolishing all those goblins that attacked their village. Based on that, the headmaster allows them to take the entrance exam. Later, they get the results. Irina unsurprisingly aced it with flying colors, while Ard, overconfident from thinking the test was a total cakewalk, managed to completely bomb it with a score of 0. That's when the headmaster reappears to congratulate Ard, saying he only got a 0 because the school's outdated curriculum couldn't comprehend his vast knowledge of ancient magics. The headmaster declares he's honored to have such a profound genius like Ard joining. He instructs the other students to thank the heavens for the privilege of studying under him. So much for Ard's dreams of staying an invisible nobody. He and Irina head to class, where Ard gets swarmed by bimbo fangirls drooling over his power. Then Ard notices this arrogant student named Elrado bullying some shy, weak girl named Ginny. Ard and Irina step in to demand the asshole apologize and quit being a dickhead. But Elrado just smirks and says he'll only stop if Ard can beat him in a duel first. Just then, their argument gets interrupted by the arrival of a hot teacher named Olivia. Ard's jaw drops, instantly recognizing her as one of the devoted followers of the Lord Varvatos himself back in the day. He's sweating bullets, knowing this babe is gonna be pissed when she realizes he's the reincarnation of her old master. Trying to play it cool, Ard lays down some cringeworthy compliments about how beautiful Olivia still is after all these years. She's understandably confused by this random student's creepy comments. Before Ard can fumble an explanation, Olivia decides to just approve the duel and demands he show off his magical prowess right then and there. Soon the whole class gathers outside for the fight. Elrado starts by firing off some energy blasts at Ard, who easily deflects the spells. He then tries chucking bigger fireballs, but they just harmlessly bounce off an invisible barrier Ard threw out. Getting desperate, Elrado starts carpet bombing the area with a fiery meteor shower of attacks. Finally, Ard's had enough plain defense. He conjures up one massive, overpowered fireball and launches it straight at the bully's dumbstruck face. Elrado shrieks out a surrender before he can get vaporized, and only then does Ard elegantly dispel the attack with a hair flip of his finger. Irina rubs it in by warning Elrado not to mess with the loser squad anymore. Ginny gratefully thanks her creepy saviors, while an impressed Olivia demands to know how Ard could cast 2 high-level spells simultaneously like that. He even threw up an invisible shield to protect Elrado, despite what a douchebag he was being. The whole class is stunned as Olivia presses him on how he can perform such lost high magic. She makes it clear she'll use any means necessary, including her massive avocados, to pry the ancient knowledge from Ard's mind. A week later, Olivia splits the class into teams of 3 for a field assignment out in some tunnels to hunt down a deadly minotaur and retrieve its horn. Despite most students baiting to squad up with Ard, he instead chooses to roll with Ginny and Irina. Ard immediately locates and roasts a black wolf easily in minutes. A remorseful Ginny apologizes for being useless, but Ard insists he can teach her some overpowered magic that doesn't even use a lot of energy. After seeing his technique in action, Ginny manages to one-shot a wolf herself using the spell. She gets so hyped that she runs over and hugs Ard tightly, announcing she's now ready for childmaking. While a flustered Irina wonders what the hell that means, Ard gets lost fantasizing about living out those weird dreams, so engrossed in his perverted musings that he falls down a deep pit. After tumbling quite a ways, Ard and the girls realize they've stumbled into the dungeon's big boss room, coming face to face with an angry-looking minotaur. But Ard takes the opportunity to continue giving his lectures about the magic spell. Then he stops the minotaur's attack with his pointer finger and strikes, sending the minotaur flying. Then he creates multiple magic spells to destroy the minotaur. After this, Ard asks Ginny to finish the minotaur since he hopes she will regain her confidence. So he tells her it's time to say goodbye to her past of being bullied and molested. Then Ginny fills with courage, uses her magic, and defeats the minotaur with it. Later on, they present the minotaur's horns to Olivia. Ginny proudly explains it was Ard's overpowered magic bullshit that allowed them to demolish the minotaur so easily. Olivia's suspicion only grows over how this ugly, disgusting, worthless, lonely loser seemingly casts such high-level spells. Before Ard can fumble an excuse, Elrado interrupts to insist Ginny was utterly useless the whole time. That's when Ginny marches right up to bitch slap the fuck out of Orado before Irina doubled down by beating him with a basket. Orado yelped and ran away. Meanwhile, Olivia informs Ard that they must have a serious discussion. The following day, he meets with Olivia and the headmaster. They urge the brat to enter the upcoming student battle tournament since the queen will be attending. Ard's vast power could surely attract the queen's attention and score the academy some funding. But the little shit arrogantly declines, refusing to be a pawn for the school's financial gain. This only piqued Lydia's curiosity in Ard even more. Desperate to shake her, Ard begged for more time to consider the offer, which the old man granted. Shortly after, he runs into Ginny in the hallway. The newly thirsty fangirl shoots her shot, shyly asking him out on a date. As the virgin's mind wanders, Irina barged in to invite herself on the date too. Ginny, being a rascal, enthusiastically agreed to make it a threesome. A few hours later, the horny trio meets up looking well-dressed before heading to a theater screening a play about Dark Lord Varvatos. But Ard can't help cringing at how the actress portraying his old crush Lydia is totally wrong, lacking her trademark aggressiveness and massive avocados. After the play, Ginny suggests grabbing a bite to eat. They stumbled upon some shady thugs bickering in an alleyway. Ard realized they were plotting an attack on the queen and, despite his friend's protests, decided to snoop further. They followed the baddies into the sewer where the trail leads them into the dank sewer tunnels below, where Ard spots an ominous-looking magic circle inscribed on the walls. Before he can decipher it, they find themselves surrounded by a gang of shady bandits cutting off their escape. The bandit boss informs them their lives now belong to his crew. But Ard just laughs off the threat, boasting it's the punks who are in mortal danger now. However, the boss casts a magic spell to burn Ard, but he easily extinguishes the fire. He then destroys the magical circle and proceeds to use an electric spell to vanquish all the bandit members, leaving only the boss intact. Ard demanded to know why the boss wanted the queen dead. That's when the bastard revealed his true demonic identity, blasting a hole in the ceiling for his exit. Ard flew off in pursuit, peppering the demon with fire magic that proved useless. Once they surfaced, the demon grabs a random little girl as a hostage to prevent Ard from doing anything. The surrounding citizens erupt into panic, fleeing at the sight of the monster. But Ard silences them all with a boastful declaration that, as the son of the legendary greatest mage, he will defeat this beast. The demon thinks he's got leverage by threatening the little girl's life, but Ard simply smirks, revealing that he used an illusion spell to reunite the girl with her mother. Recognizing Ard's extraordinary abilities, the demon attempts to flee, but Ard blasted him with a spell, vaporizing him. With the threat eliminated, the idiot peasants immediately began worshipping their new beloved hero, tossing Ard up and down. The next day, Ard has an audience with the hot queen herself, Rosa. Turns out the royal babe is a childhood friend of Irina's, so the spoiled princess gets to treat her all casually. Rosa lays it on thick about rewarding Ard for his heroics against that demon. But the little turd surprises her by requesting her to allocate more funding to the academy instead. Somehow this mundane act of not being a selfish prick for once impresses Rosa's stupid standards. She decides to go ahead and hook Ard up with both personal rewards and an increase in the school's budget. Ard realized that his dumb ass made the situation even worse. The very next day at school, some random ugly bitch corners him to confess her love. He tries letting her down easily, apologizing that he could never date such an ugly, disgusting fuck-faced girl. Instead, he offers to keep her in a friend zone. But the girl is convinced that Ard's a virgin, so she decides to forcefully drag him into bed. Before that horrifying scenario can unfold, Irina appears in a furious rage that sends the thirsty girl running. Ard tries thanking her for the assist, but she just storms off without a word. Meanwhile, Professor Jessica meets with the headmaster in his office. Seems he's still stressing over Ard's stubborn refusal to compete in the upcoming student battle tournament. The old pervert also can't help oversharing his brilliant idea to make Ard an instructor. Jessica assured him she would take care of it. That night, Ard lies awake wondering what the fuck he did to piss Irina off so much earlier. Suddenly, Ginny invites herself into his room and strips off her armor. Bitch is determined that if any girl's taking Ard's virginity, it's gonna be her, so she tells the virgin loser he can do whatever depraved acts he wants to her body. But just as they're about to lock lips, Irina, who wanted to apologize to him, storms in to find them. She starts screaming and throwing a tantrum over the situation as Ginny just taunts her about not being the only one after Ard's dick anymore. Irina gets so heated that she literally challenges Ginny to a duel, with the winner getting to keep Ard and the loser never going near him. Ard is fed up with the childish fight and told to apologize to each other. But Jessica ironically interrupts. She lays out the headmaster's insane plan to make Ard a teacher. But the higher-ups won't approve unless he proves his leadership by entering the tournament with Irina and Ginny as his students. If they can fight their way to victory with Ard's guidance, it'll demonstrate he's qualified to instruct. They quickly agree to go along with Jessica's plan, if it means burning each other's to claim the loser's virginity as the prize. The next day, the student battle tournament kicks off. Ard's dad and Irina's father are even present as guest commentators for the show. Irina and Ginny proceed to steamroll through the early rounds, demolishing every unfortunate opponent unlucky enough to cross their paths until reaching the final showdown against each other. But just as they are about to fight, a crew of masked men in the audience stand up and shapeshift into goblins. The arena erupts into mass panic as the crowds lose their minds fleeing for dear life. Jessica warns Ard and Olivia that more demons have spread outside the stadium too. So Ard decides to take the fight to the enemy alongside Olivia and his dad, while Olhide sticks around with Jessica to deal with the goblins infesting the arena. Later, a crystal goblin appears in front of Irina and Ginny. So they tried to attack it using magic, but their magic was weak and it had no effect on it, until Olhide shows up to one-shot the freak with an overpowered wind spell. But just as that threat's eliminated, Olhide gets blindsided from behind by Jessica, only for this imposter to shed her human disguise, revealing herself as the scaly bitch queen of dragons, Elzard. She arrogantly declares her true purpose is kidnapping Irina for some nefarious plot. Ginny tries playing the hero, only for Elzard to easily paralyze her. Irina pleads for her friend's life, promising to cooperate if Elzard leaves everyone else unharmed. The dragon accepts before sprouting demonic wings to fly off with Irina. Cut to Olhide later waking up back at the academy, with Ard healing his wound. After getting filled in on Elzard's treachery, Ard immediately vows to pursue and rescue Irina. Olhide offers to at least disclose the dragon's hideout location, while also hooking him with a fresh suit of armor for the inevitable fight. Meanwhile, Irina finds herself magically imprisoned. The dragon lays out her twisted plan to use Irina's bloodline to resurrect an ancient evil god, granting Elzard the power to destroy this rotten world she despises so much. Irina insists Ard will come to save her, but Elzard taunts whether he'll remain so devoted after learning Irina's terrible secret heritage. After wearing his fresh armor, Ard prepares to head out, but Ginny intercepts him, begging the loner to bring her bestie back safely too. He vows to have Irina home for dinner before flying off towards Elzard's hideout. Just as a monster is about to devour Irina, Ard arrives just in time to annihilate the demon with magic. He then launches different spells, effortlessly eliminating Elzard's whole squad. After that, he freed Irina, and she hugged him, totally in tears. But Elzard ruins the moment by cackling about Irina secretly carrying the bloodline of evil gods within her veins. Ard doesn't even flinch, retorting that her heritage could never erase all the kindness and bravery she's embodied. Regardless of her origins, he vows Irina deserves to be cherished, loved, and the F-word too. This pissed off Elzard, and she fired a magical strike at Ard, but he managed to defend himself. Then he cast a fireball spell at Elzard, sending her flying. But she came back transformed into a dragon, unleashing all her energy in a magical breath. But Ard channels ancient spells, summoning a protective golden spirit to shield him. Addressing it as Lydia, the spirit transformed into a sword. Taking to the skies with flying magic, Ard engaged Elzard in fierce combat, their spells clashing violently. Elzard manages to temporarily overwhelm Ard into a corner. But Irina's passionate words of encouragement ignite him, allowing him to unleash the full extent of his power. He then charges up one final, explosive magic blast that completely atomizes Elzard into oblivion with a thunderous shockwave. As the dust settles, he turns to Irina and tells her they've got dinner plans to attend. She warmly follows him, vowing to grow even stronger so she can fight by his side from now on. Later that night, a girl named Sylphie is training by eliminating monsters in a dungeon, and she is happy she can now get out of the dungeon after training for 3 years. But when she emerges topside, Sylphie is mind-fucked to find an entirely different civilization has emerged in the years her dumbass was gone. That's when a masked weirdo appears to let her in on how time flows completely differently inside that dungeon, meaning her dumbass was down there for 3,000 years. The creep then reveals how they both used to serve the legendary Lord Varvatos back in their previous era, only for him to get reincarnated as a worthless piece of garbage named Ard Meteor in this era. Cut to the academy, where the headmaster is filling Ard, Ginny, and Irina in on the upcoming school festival. He inquired if they would be interested in putting together a school play after Irina's suggestion. The headmaster then handed Ard a letter demanding the festival's cancellation due to fear of potential demon attacks. Concerned about the safety of the event, he instructed Ard to patrol during the festival. When they get back to class, Sophie barges in desperately searching for the pathetic Ard. She starts asking the other students about Ard. Then Olivia shows up and tells Sophie she hasn't grown up at all those years. Ard couldn't help but chuckle quietly, and that's when Sophie spots him. She marches over to him and starts bombarding him with questions about her sister Lydia. Irina stands up and tells her to shut the fuck up and leave Ard alone. Those cold words hit differently, bringing back memories of how Lydia used to be sometimes a bitch. So she started begging Irina to take pity and be her new friend. But Irina says she doesn't befriend flat girls, destroying all of her hopes. This pissed her off and she challenges Irina to a duel. But then Olivia interrupts, suggesting that the duel should be between Ard and Sophie instead. She is eager to see Ard's full potential, fully aware of how much of a badass Sophie is too. Later on, everyone gathered outside for the hyped fight to go down. Sophie begins to attack Ard in anger, but Ard blocks every single one effortlessly. After exchanging a furious flurry of blows, he finds Sophie's weak point. However, she manages to stop his attack and counterattack, calling him a weak little girl. Those words got him, and he ended her with a single blow. Olivia declares Ard as the winner, but Sophie refuses to accept the loss and summons her OG sword. Ard screamed for her dumbass not to use that spell, but Sophie didn't listen, launching the full attack directly at him. Ard manages to shield himself from the spell. Just then, Olivia told her to stop already because she had poisoned all the students and knocked them unconscious. She told her that Lydia would be disappointed to see how dumb her sister had become. Irina stormed in too and scolds her dumbass. Both Ard and Sophie begin to remember Lydia as they notice her resemblance to Irina. Later, the whole dumbass class gathered to discuss the play they'd be doing for the festival. Turns out it was gonna be all about Lord Varvatos, and to everyone's shock, they decided Ard would be playing the role of Varvatos himself. On the other hand, Sophie recommended Irina take on the part of Lydia. Sophie then eagerly offered to play the evil god so she could get a chance to take down Ard's Varvatos, even though it was just a dumb play. Then Ginny also spoke up, proposing they have the girls all wear some light outfits to help raise funds. The other idiots were hesitant at first, but eventually agreed since they figured it'd be a prime opportunity to try and seduce Ard's sorry ass. When the day of the festival rolled around, Ard and Irina were on patrol duty, but suddenly, a huge explosion went down nearby. Rushing over, they found Sophie threatening an ugly old man, convinced he was a demon in disguise. Luckily, Professor Olivia stepped in to tell the crazy bitch to knock it off and stop with the patrols already. As Ard and Irina discussed the weird tree in front of them, Olivia revealed it contained some ancient holy sword. She then dropped the bombshell that she'd be entering the sword tournament and demanded that Ard join the tournament too. The loser tried protesting, but Olivia just threatened to make him regret it if he didn't join. A few hours later, he visits the class only to be welcomed by all his classmates who are wearing the maid outfits and are ready for Ard to taste them. But just as he was about to taste, an announcement rang out. The sword tournament winner would receive some big rewards. Hearing that, Irina, Ginny, and Sophie all decided to enter the competition too. The day of the tournament finally rolled around, and Irina's match was up first. She demolished her opponent with zero effort. Then it was Olivia's turn, except the opponent immediately surrendered before they could even start. Afterward, Ard easily took down his opponent, quietly wondering when the hell he was going out of this virginity mode. Next up was Ginny's fight, and at first her opponent was overpowering her. But then Ard stood up and promised Ginny he'd let her do whatever perverted act she wanted if she won to his dick. That seemed to do the trick, as Ginny suddenly stepped it up to clutch the victory. Right after the match, some other classmate came begging Irina and Sophie for help with some bullshit. Ginny invited Ard to join her for the beauty contest. In the crowd, Ard finds El Rado, who has changed to be an ugly fatso. He walks over to him and asks him how he's been doing so far. Meanwhile, Ginny took the stage to show off her beauty to the audience. Seeing this, the pathetic El Rado finally realized the error of his bullying ways, feeling ashamed of how he'd mistreated the girl in the past just because his daddy raised him to be a dickhead. But now, after that ass-whooping from Ard, He had turned over a new leaf and was glad to see Ginny had gained the confidence to put herself out there. After the presentations ended, Ard and Ginny ended up winning the title of Most Attractive. This only boosted her confidence, making her even more determined to finally seduce Ard to bed. The quarterfinal matches of the tournament were up next. First, Ard faces off against Lydia. The witch didn't hold back, attacking him with everything she had, but in his overconfidence, the dumbass accidentally used some spell to launch Olivia hundreds of feet away from the arena. The crowd immediately started calling Ard a cheater for using magic when he wasn't supposed to. He realized he was screwed. Up next were Irina and Ginny, both eager to fight for the prize of getting to claim Ard's virginity. The two argued the whole time until Irina ultimately emerged victorious. The day of the play finally arrived. Ard and his classmates shine in their play. Ard, however, seems to be having a not-so-great time as he feels very embarrassed for playing one of his battles. He recalls the moments before his actual battle where he wanted to invade the castle of a demon king named Avia Desaviers. Then Sylphie starts jumping up and down in excitement, saying that they will defeat these ugly bastards. But Lydia quickly scolded the flat-chested brat for her childish behavior. After that, the demon Avia told Varvatos to enjoy his last night alive before they were slaughtered the next day. Cut to Varvatos' army resting up, when suddenly Sylphie approaches the Ard lying and tells him that she is ready to have a child with him. She says she has an idea that could help them defeat these assholes, but says Lydia won't let her do anything, and she just wants to help them win this battle. He took pity and gave Sylphie the freedom to do whatever she wanted on the battlefield. She happily hugged him in thanks. The battle kicked off the next day, but before Avia could even make a move, Sylphie's trap was triggered, causing a huge smokescreen explosion that distracted the demon. Lydia seized the opportunity and gave him a blowjob. Sylphie was thrilled, thinking her trap was the key to victory. Unfortunately, the foolish girl had forgotten where all her other traps were placed, which ended up screwing over Varvatos' own forces too. Afterward, Lydia apologized to Sylphie for scolding her and says she was proud of her beautiful ass. Back to the present, Ard's play ends up being a success. Then Sylphie saw a person who looked like her sister. Chasing after the figure, she was disappointed to find it wasn't Lydia after all. That's when the creepy masked guy showed up again. The scene then shifted to the final match, Sylphie versus Irina. But the fight was over in a literal blink, as Sylphie suddenly appeared behind Irina's back and knocked her out, stunning the entire audience and winning the tournament. Later that night, Sylphie summoned Ard to the weird tree. Once there, she boldly asked if he was the reincarnation of Lord Varvatos, but before he could even answer, she declared that she wanted to kill him on the spot. Suddenly, the sword in her hand began glowing as the tree activated. Ard realized this must be the real legendary sword that belonged to Lydia, the secret seal inside that tree all along. Without warning, Sylphie then launched an attack on Ard. The coward immediately took off flying, wondering who the hell had brainwashed her. Meanwhile, the creepy masked guy was smugly basking in how his little scheme was unfolding perfectly. He recalled showing Sylphie a memory of Ard killing her beloved sister Lydia. Sylphie caught up and managed to land a hit, wounding him from behind. She then tried to end his pathetic life, but Irina and Ginny appeared to give Ard a hand. Sylphie shifted her aggression towards them instead. However, right as Sylphie is about to attack, Ard suddenly transforms back to his former self. He moved to strike Sylphie, but just before he hurt her, Lydia's voice cried out from the sword, pleading for Sylphie to stop. That's when the creepy masked guy showed up, knocking Sylphie aside. He then snatched up both her swords and charged at Ard, only to get his arm chopped off in the process. The bastard then tried using Lydia's blade but ended up getting electrocuted. Ard then declared he'd show this fool how to properly wield a holy sword, landing a devastating blow that made the masked asshole vanish, leaving only his mask behind. After the battle, Lydia's spirit emerged from the sword, telling Sylphie not to blame Ard and urging her to live her life to the fullest. She then faded back into the blade, disappearing. Sometime later, Ard's class was on a field trip when their carriage suddenly hit a rock, only for everything around them to freeze in time as they flashed out of existence. A strange little boy then appeared before their eyes, introducing himself as a god. He warned them about a being named the Demon Lord who could destroy their entire world. Urging Ard to eliminate this threat, the kid vanished. When Ard and the girls finally came to their senses, they found themselves under a sky with 2 moons, realizing they'd been transported back to the nation once ruled by Lord Varvatos himself. Ard knew the only way for them to return home would be to have a talk with Varvatos. Just then, they spotted a helpless girl being chased by a scorpion monster. Without hesitation, Ard summons several spells and easily eliminates the scorpion. Then Olivia from this era showed up, thanking them for saving her mate. She then cast a spell to see their strength, which knocked out Irina and Ginny, but had no effect on Ard, so she took them to town. Upon arrival, Ard and the girls were stunned by the surrounding civilization. That's when Olivia approached Ard, amazed at his strength, and she proposed that he join her army. Ard agreed, but only on two conditions: that Ginny and Irina be enlisted as well, and that they all be assigned under the command of Lady Lydia's forces. Olivia was taken aback by the second demand, but ultimately conceded, sending them off to Lydia's base. However, upon arriving, the base exploded. After the dust settled, a beautiful young girl named Verda introduced herself as the magical research girl. Ard wasted no time informing her that they had come from the future. Exciting the genius girl, Verda assured them she would do everything in her power to help find a way for the trio to return home. Just then, the past version of Sylphie burst in, intent on capturing Verda. Then she calls for Lydia, who at first glance seems quite friendly. However, she begins to bully Verda and demands more troops from her. So Verda suggests she can take Ard and his two girls, and when Lydia takes a glance at Ginny, she gets interested in her and asks her for a nightstand. As she turns out to like women, Lydia finds out that Ginny is a virgin, so she pulls her close and begins to explore Ginny's ass. Before things escalated, Ard intervened and separated them. This pisses Lydia and she challenges him to a duel to settle, which he accepted. He then tells Irina and Ginny to wait for him at the base. Minutes later, the two meet up outside ready to clash. Lydia beats the hell out of him and even sends him flying. However, he also muscles up and keeps fighting for some time until they are both tired. They end up on the ground lying completely exhausted. But then Ard gets up and tries to leave. She stops him and asks for his help. She recognizes his strength and needs it. He requests a meetup with Varvatos, but she insists he has to earn the guy's trust first. Only then can he score a meeting with him. He's got to pull off something epic to catch his eye. Days later, Ard attended a war alongside his two girls and Lydia. He then realized they were in the Battle of Aurelia, one of the major clashes against the demon forces. Ard soon realized the fierce general they were facing, known as Bulgan, was actually deceiving Lydia. The general's true intent was to destroy the war supplies, not achieve victory. Seeing this as his chance to gain Varvatos' attention, Ard charged forward and unleashed a powerful spell, decisively defeating Bulgan. After the general's defeat, the foolish Lydia and Sylphie arrived, utterly amazed by the power Ard had displayed. Impressed, Lydia declared to Ard that he had now proven himself worthy of an audience with the legendary demon Lord Varvatos himself. The next day, Ard and his two girls were escorted to Varvatos' kingdom. While heading towards a hall, they were ambushed by a fire spell. Ard protects them with a magical shield. Then one of Varvatos' generals, Alvardos, appears, telling them that his previous attack was showing them respect. This pisses Lydia off, but before she kicks his ass, Varvatos intervenes and leads Ard and his girls to the throne room to listen to whatever they have to say. The excited virgin, Irina, started blabbering some nonsense she knew about the Dark Lord from their time. But Varvatos just looked cluelessly, asking who the hell they were talking about. Ard instantly wondered if there was some imposter claiming Varvatos' infamous title in their original timeline. His suspicions were confirmed when Varvatos claimed he knew a different person by that name. Later, back at Verda's villa, the group tried to unravel the mystery. Verda theorized that someone must have altered the flow of history, which is why the mysterious god had summoned them, so they could eliminate the false Dark Lord before returning home. This world's demon lord had only appeared a few short years ago, despite Varvatos being unable to defeat him. But before they could discuss it further, Lydia interrupted, begging Ard to join her in the next battle. On the way, she revealed they'd be facing a high-ranking demon called Neveles, a name that sent shivers down Ard's spine, knowing the past Lydia had died fighting this enemy. So when the battle commenced, Ard wasted no time unleashing a powerful tornado to quickly eliminate all the enemy soldiers, desperate to prevent history from repeating. As they approached Neveles' castle, they found the entire fortress consumed by flames. But just as they drew near, a sword suddenly slashed off Neveles' head from the shadows. Then the mysterious killer revealed himself, declaring he was the true demon lord, and declared war on Varvatos before vanishing. The following day, Varvatos assembled his generals for a war council. One dumbass tried protesting Ard and his girls even being present, but the Varvatos insisted he needed the losers. He then dropped the bombshell that they'd be waging all-out war against the Dark Lord himself, to demolish him within 3 days. This left Ard stunned, as he informed Varvatos that the Dark Lord was immortal, but says he has a secret to defeat the freak. Later, Ard returned to his room, dropping down on the bed as the gravity of their situation weighed on him. He realized that by saving Lydia's life, he had completely rewritten the course of history itself. The anxious virgin couldn't help wondering what cosmic implications this twist might ripple back to alter their original timeline. But the demon lord appeared and told him that history cannot be altered so easily, and that Lydia could not be saved even if they made a big change in history. The Dark Lord then mentions that he already knows Ard's true identity, and he takes off his helmet, showing him that he is Ard Meteor from another dimension called Disaster. When Ard asks him what his plans are in this world, he tells Ard that he's there to save Lydia. He feels guilty for allowing his foolishness to get the best of him when he killed Lydia, so by traveling back in time, he wishes to defeat his former self, so the incident with Lydia never happens. This surprises Ard, and it seems absurd to him. Disaster then tells him that he will become a threat to the world if he doesn't kill him, and Lydia will also die if he lives, thus they can prevent this from happening by eliminating Varvatos of this era. And then Disaster asks Ard to join his team since they both plan on saving Lydia. Ard pulls out his hand to join forces with the Disaster, however he hears a voice in his head which orders him to stop, so he pulls back. Disaster gives him 3 days to think about and take his leave. Later, Ard rejoined Irina and Ginny for a meal, only for Lydia to invite him for a walk around town. They take their time, and then Lydia tells him that she likes to go out with him, but he tells her that she is ugly. Before he could even finish the insult, she punched him and they started exchanging punches that left them both lying on the ground. As they catch their breath, Lydia asks Ard what's bothering him as she realizes that something is disturbing him. He asks her what she would do if she needed to sacrifice the most important thing in the world for her, but she decides to take him to a different place before answering. Lydia revealed that this was the place where she killed a lot of demons, and ghosts began flying out of the ground to haunt her name. In the war, Lydia had to eliminate all of the innocent citizens. She felt like a ruthless killer. Lydia begged Ard not to change her fate, to allow her to atone for her crimes against humanity through the death she had always accepted as just punishment. After returning home, Lydia gives a gift to Irina and Ginny, and then invites all of them for a drink. Days later, the battle finally kicked off with Verda slaying the demons with her war robots. Meanwhile, Ard met up with Disaster to deliver his final answer. The Virgin made it clear he wouldn't be joining the creep's quest to save Lydia. She had requested Ard to respect her wishes to atone for her sins. Hearing this pissed Disaster off, prompting him to immediately launch an attack on Ard. But he easily dodged the attack, signaling for their climactic brawl to commence. After exchanging a flurry of blows, Disaster smugly revealed he had predicted this very outcome all along. Meanwhile, back at the villa, Irina and Ginny moped around feeling left out of the big battle. That's when Latima, one of Lydia's servants, showed up to inform the sad sacks that Ard had a secret mission in mind just for them. Intrigued, the bimbos followed Latima, who explained along the way how Disaster had achieved his immortality by separating his soul and sealing it within a magical crystal hidden in his castle's depths. If they could infiltrate and smash that crystal, it would permanently strip the demon of his immortality. But as soon as they neared their target destination, a pack of monsters ambushed the girls. Latima ordered them to go ahead and destroy the crystal while she bravely held off the beasts. Once inside the castle, they summoned their swords to smash the crystals, only to trigger a magical trap that tied them up. As a result of Latima's spell, seeing his friends tied up, Ard flew into a rage. But Disaster assured him that he didn't intend to harm them. The creep just wanted Ard to stop interfering with his plan to save Lydia from her miserable fate, no matter how many had to be destroyed in the process. However, Irina and Ginny used a spell Ard had taught them to free themselves from the trap. Witnessing their escape, Latima summoned a horde of monsters to attack the girls. That's when the ceiling suddenly caved in and Lydia came crashing down. She had apparently tracked their location using the gift she gifted them earlier. Lydia commanded Latima to cease her nonsense, but she refused, insisting her sole goal was to save Lydia from death. Infuriated, Lydia swiftly annihilated all of the monsters. She then knocked out Latima, calling her an idiot. Lydia declared she was more than ready to die if it meant creating a better world. With that, she lunged at the crystal, destroying it and stripping Disaster of his immortality once and for all. Disaster felt that he had lost his immortality and became angry, activating his second phase alongside Ard. They began a serious fight. After a series of attacks, Ard ultimately won the fight and killed Disaster with his sword. Almost immediately, Ard and his two girls all began glowing and transcending back to their own time. Before they left, Lydia asked them about the future. Irina and Ginny told her that the future was bright and full of life. Lydia was happy to hear this. She then asked them to deliver a message to Ard. After receiving the message, Ard and the girls both disappeared. Ard appeared in the white dimension and met again with the child. Ard asked him what he was, and the child told him to simply consider him an ally. Ard told him that he hoped not to see him again. After that, Ard woke up next to Sophie. There he realized that Irina and Ginny were wearing Lydia's gifts. Before he could say anything, he was interrupted by Olivia, who informed them that they had arrived at their destination. When they got off, the group realized they were in the old capital of the kingdom. Irina then relayed Lydia's final message to Ard, which put a smile on his face. In the final scene of the series, Lydia's spirit appeared behind Ard, and he got to say his final goodbyes before she disappeared into thin air. Thanks for tuning in. If you've made it this far, drop a comment with any word I should use to roast the main character of the anime, and I'll make sure to use it in my upcoming videos. Don't forget to hit the like button as well.